this week has left me wondering, did I order the wrong CEO pendant? Should I have ordered the Sundar pendant? Should I make the Sundar pendant available in the store? Because Gemini 2.5 continues to crush it as the leading model. And to top it off, Google are in this weird ship mode and actually listen to your users mode, which is just quite bizarre, to be frank. And at their event in Las Vegas, the Google Cloud Next event, they were so gangster that when they brought themselves out on stage, they had this insanely cool rap playing.
Check the mic. 2.5 Pro in the session, heard static from lesser silicon. Time for a lesson. Yeah, I'm the new build, context window wide. While you chatbots stutter, nowhere left to hide. Processing audio, video.
Anyway, so he walked out on stage to this killer rap, and then they announced all sorts of things, and we're going to do our best to break all of those things down and try and explain what the hell they were on about.
Can you just imagine if they really did that? Like, I just love this idea of
they did.
I've been writing letters to like young female singers about singing your '01 song, like trying to get them to perform it. I'm having no success at all.
Why does no one want to perform it? I mean, listen, it's a hit.
It could be a hit. I think I'm gonna have to resort to like Fiverr or something like that. But yeah, like actual brand name singers don't want anything to do with it, Mike. Sorry.
Oh, that's a shame. I love how, like, I don't know where this budget's coming from to pay these singers. Maybe the hat budget. I don't
even know. I didn't even put a price because I don't know what someone would charge to just sing you a song. Like, probably a fair bit.
I think a good artist, yeah, it would be quite a bit. So there's going to be a link in the bottom if you want to purchase the hat, and it's not a scam. Well, it still theoretically could be, but I'm saying it's not, so therefore it's not.
Normally we say it is a scam. This time we're saying it's not. So it's definitely, we've built some credibility there.
Yeah, you can actually order them. It's ordering from us, and yeah, we will send you one of these hats. Unfortunately, it is restricted to some locations around the world. Some places you will not be able to order them, but you can now order the official Sim Theory hat and get your AI fashion in order. But let's get back to the opening keynote for Google Cloud Next. And I think one of the most interesting things we wanted to talk about is just some of the announcements that their Vertex AI offering has. And for those that can't keep up with the Google Cloud brand names, Vertex AI is essentially where cloud customers that want to access the AIs in production, or the different models and modalities and things that they offer. Vertex AI is one of the places. You can also get keys in AI Studio, which is another Google product, which has also seen some updates. So let's talk through a few things here. We've got the agent development kit was announced. There's sample agents available in Agent Garden. These names are hilarious. Then you've got Agent Space, Google Agent Space. So you can roll out an Agent Space for your workspace in your Google Workspace account. Then you've got the Customer Engagement Suite. And I think probably the thing we were most interested in is this Agent2Agent protocol. So, do you want to start there as the thing that we discussed?
Yeah, it's of particular interest to me because I'm speaking as someone who for the last few weeks has been very deep into the MCP world, the Model Context Protocol world, and getting the different services running, like the MCP servers, which basically provide a list of tools that can be called. So you don't have to know how the tool works, but your AI agent can use them. So for example, we always use the example of Stripe. It can create refunds, it can create invoices, it can look up customers, or you might have Google Drive where you can search documents and produce documents and things like that. So all these different systems can be communicated with over a common protocol, which makes them very easy to interact with. So what the Agent2Agent protocol is the sort of next level of that. So the idea that those agents, those systems could then communicate with one another. So I have an agent running on one system, it's able to make a request of another agent and get a response, either streaming or not streaming from that agent. So rather than having to hit up an API, I can hit up another agent and ask it for something like that. And we've spoken about this for a while. The idea in the future that you would have specialized agents that have different abilities, different memories, different things like that, and then you could make a request of those and then get a response back to your primary console or your primary agent. And what they're trying to do here, similar to the Model Context Protocol, is just make a system that allows a common form of communication between them. It makes sense.
So for those listening that are sort of trying to think through examples of this, it might be that you're in Google Gemini and it can go off to Salesforce and have a list of agents that are available and then call one of those specific Salesforce agents to complete a given task. How is that different to MCP?
I think the main difference is the idea that an agent, especially when you look at Google's agent development framework, an agent has things like memories. It has things like a knowledge base that it can call on. It has tools within it, like a sort of MCP within it, but that's just part of the overall thing. So an agent would be a more full picture of a sort of like employee or someone who can go off and do something, whereas an MCP server is really just a series of tools that an agent uses. So if I connect to an MCP server, I get a list of things I can do. Like a great example that you and I were playing with yesterday was an academic papers MCP. And when I connect to that MCP server, I get a list of 3 functions, well, actually 2 technically. One is search for papers and 2 is read paper. So in other words, I can give it some parameters, get a series of papers back, and then read in the data from those papers. But my system knows nothing about how that works. It just hits the MCP server, it gets those tool definitions back, it can then use them. Now my system has the ability to search and read academic papers. So that's the MCP thing. I imagine what you'd be talking about with the agent-to-agent protocol is I can go off and ask a research agent to research a topic, prepare a report for me as a Microsoft Word document, and also construct the images I need in my report. And it comes back to me when it's finished, because the whole idea with the agent-to-agent protocol is you can sort of set them tasks, and it would go off and do that task and then come back when that task is fully complete. So if you think about it, it's sort of there's more agency. It does more stuff. It actually is making decisions and doing things rather than just being a dispassionate list of functions it can perform, if that makes sense.
And so you can imagine a future where a company like Salesforce or one of these research providers, instead of providing APIs, they're really providing a series or a manifest of agents that allow you to interact with their proprietary data or proprietary system or the
So
application.
next there'll be agent context protocol, which is how you can discover the agents that are available or something like that.
Yeah, but I guess like just thinking this through, trying to think it through like logically how it plays out. I'm not in disagreement with it because we've predicted this for a very long time, that these models would have to call specialist agents and then they would, route between them to get things done in the background. So I'm in agreement with the...
It's absolutely in everyone's benefit. And we can see this with MCP. Now that I've gotten a lot deeper into it, I can absolutely see the benefits of everyone agreeing on a common format, because it means that you can let the people who want to advertise their services, whether they're open source ones they're just doing for the benefit of the community, or companies that are trying to encourage you to use their services, like 11 Labs, for example, will provide a really nice MCP server. So now when I want to do text to speech or transcriptions and things, I'm going to use them because they've got an MCP server that I can just with one command load up, and then I have those abilities. So it's great to have that common system, because then you focus on building what your system or your agent wants to do, and you can make those functions available. And really, in a lot of cases, other than an OAuth connection or an API key, it's plug and play. And I think we'll see the same with the agent-to-agent protocol. It really does make sense in the future that you're going to want your agents interacting with other people's agents, or even within your own system, you want the agents doing different things. So this is where we get back to those concepts we saw in the early days, like Crew AI and stuff, where I will have a team of agents, each with different skills. they will have this interoperability where they're all asking each other to do stuff, and then maybe one coordinator agent that brings it all together for you, the ultimate commander and boss who controls this web of agents.
I guess my point around this would be, it's the end user, right? Like, I'm in my workspace getting my job done. Like, what's the end user experience here that I actually desire outside of all of this, like, agents managing agents and things that, quite frankly, I think at times is hard to get your head around. And to me,
Yeah.
it just comes down to, I just want to have a task list. I just want to bark orders, and I want the really super smart AI assistant I work with, like Patricia, to help me go off. And Patricia's like, on it, I'm going to go spool up some stuff and figure this out. I don't really care how it works. Like, mechanically behind the scenes, it makes sense from a development point of view. But I think an end user experience, the industry and the market right now is just pushing agents so hard on the end users, like agents. But like, at the end of the day, like, what do you think the future of an agent will become? Is it a sort of like feature, like a deep research tool that they call an agent, like that's an agent to the end user? Or is it the expectation that they go off and build their own agents on top of other agents? For example, like if you have that research agent that can look up papers and go and do the research and collate all that data between the different sources that we call, is that something then that you go and have your own unique spin on, or are you just a consumer of all those things? Like, which world do you imagine where we go and build on top of those, or they just exist as the new APIs of the future, call it?
Well, I think we have a unique perspective of this because when we built Sim Theory V1, we essentially built what Google is now advertising as their agent builder, where there is essentially steps in a procedure that accomplish a certain task, and they're calling that an agent. Now, I don't really see that as agency. I think we've spoken about this last week, where we're talking about that is what I would imagine would be your own sort of skill construction. So in my job, I always have to download the latest report from this website. I have to do analysis on that report. I have to do external research, produce my own report, and then submit that via email to someone. To me, that is a documented work process that could be turned into a reusable skill. And even though under it, you're just using LLMs and all that, it is common steps that always have to happen. And so that just becomes a skill, which is then part of sort of like your own personal MCP system, where I've got my list of tools that I've made and they can be used by my agents to get work done. Now, you asked about how I see the future of working with agents. I see two. I think in the medium term or short term, even like very soon, the way it's going to work is this. We are going to build a series of skills like I just described. We're also going to get a series of skills from external MCP servers that we sort of adopt as our own. So I might have skills that are able to go and research the finance markets. I might have other skills that are able to research academic papers. I might have other skills that can produce documents and reports, make videos, make podcasts, like so output kind of ones and input kind of ones. And then I am then commanding an agent, let's say, what I want to do. That agent then comes up with a plan. So let's say I say to Patricia, look, today, I'm researching IBM. I want you to get all the latest information, stock prices, what are people saying on the socials? How are the new tariffs going to affect it? Give me a real perspective on IBM, produce a report. I want a PowerPoint presentation that contains images that I can present to my team as my financial research report, sometime today. Then Patricia goes off as an agent, makes a plan. She says, I need to do this research, that research, this research. I then need to combine that. I need to make a report. I need to ask another agent to check out that report and give me some feedback. Then I'm going to iterate again. And then finally, I'll go back to the user, the love of my life, and present the final report for him in a PowerPoint presentation with some testing notes, right? Some tasting notes, as you call them. And I think that is coming now. Like, I think that should exist now. We're working on it. I think that's what we're going to see in the next few months, like the ability to do what I just described there. I think what the future may hold is a step above that. Like, you talk about zooming out to the higher level perspective. And I think the higher level perspective would then be, I have a goal. Let's say I'm a small time investment company or a private wealth investor. My goal is to make money for my customers. And so I would then have agents which are able to command those research agents to go, okay, I need to pick 10 stocks to invest in. All right, team, let's do all the different research reports. Other agents then evaluate it, and then they make decisions and can actually take actions such as allocating funds and looking for feedback and that kind of thing. So I think we need to go through the first step to get to the second step. I think a good example of that is why Sim Theory V1, we sort of had to scrap that and go back to the ChatGPT style for a while before we got back to agent building, because people's thinking just isn't there yet. I think if you leapt all the way to agents controlling agents, and it's just like, what's the mission statement of this company, type it in, give it some money, and then it just goes and does everything. Like, I don't think people are ready for that. They're not going to trust that. And there's too many mistakes in terms of hallucinations and other tooling that just simply doesn't exist yet to get there. But I think everybody going through that next step of, I am the commander of my agents and tools, and I am getting them to do background tasks for me that are reporting back. I'm coordinating, I'm helping come up with the plan and doing it. And then we all graduate to an agent that has the ability to plan and do more. And then eventually we graduate to this idea that there's supervisory agents and other levels of agentry going on. Like, that's sort of how I see it playing out, at least in a sort of business research education perspective.
Yeah, and as you say, we've spoken about this idea before, whereas like, what does the actual end user want today? And it's a lot of these boring, monotonous tasks, like you mentioned, updating some research or fields in a spreadsheet based on some data on the web. I think that's like a pretty classic example of something you might do fairly often that you can teach an AI assistant to do, or just get it to go off and figure out how to do. But it seems like the agent-to-agent protocol of that next level is like, I guess I wonder if it will become a replacement for an MCP, which is really just tool revealing and calling within some of these other applications. Like, if I'm at Atlassian and it's like, one of the skills that you can give my assistant is create a Jira ticket, read Jira tickets, update a Jira ticket, for example.
Yeah.
Does that become, I call the Atlassian code agent and to just go like, hey, there's a bug in my app. Can you go figure this out? And then now, like, that's the agent at Atlassian.
I agree. And I think that might even be 2 levels up. So I think level 1 right now would be, okay, I have my academic paper one, which I can then command my agent to go, hey, I need you to go off and find this academic paper, turn that into a report, blah, blah, blah. Right now, you can do that in Sim Theory, or very shortly you'll be able to do that in Sim Theory, where it will do those steps. Like, it will go use the MCP server, find the academic paper, download it, read it, understand it, combine it with other research and produce a report. Like, that's going to happen. But it's our system that is coordinating that chain of tool calling, right? So Sim Theory itself is handling the chain tool calls to get you to the end result. I think what the agent-to-agent protocol would allow is someone to have an agent that does all that stuff in a single step as far as the client system like Sim Theory is concerned. So instead of Sim Theory itself having to coordinate all those steps, or whatever system you're building having to coordinate all those steps and know how they interoperate and provide them all, that sort of interoperability will come from agent to agent. So the agent has far more ability to get a whole task done when there's multiple steps, rather than just individual steps which you need to coordinate yourself.
I think it's also at some level repeatability, right? Like, if everyone's building a task to solve some bugs or log tickets or evaluate a ticket or whatever it is, that repeatability of having the agent provided by the vendor who's a specialist in that area like makes a ton of sense. I guess the real question is, though, as this evolves, at what point do you look at something like Atlassian and a Jira and maybe their own like coding assistant and say, well, you know, this thing's totally irrelevant now. Like, we can just patch in full agency. Like we can just go to the root of the computer and do this. Like why do we need this SaaS sort of API agent framework in the middle of it?
I think you're right. I think that's inevitable. And I think that's why we've spoken about the great importance of computer use, because at some point you don't need some system you have to log into and type commands to and stuff like that. Like at some point it really should just be the computer is the agent, and or at least the computer is the interface to the agent. You don't need all these other layers on top of it other than really organization and directing it in certain areas, right? Like there'll be convenience tools for sure, but you definitely don't need an AI agent in every single system you ever interact with, because they're all going to be varying quality, and you really want one super agent that's able to interact with the agents of other systems as best they're published. So yeah, I absolutely see that. I think the other thing that'll be interesting is repeatability. So the one thing about MCP servers is that, sure, my system, if I ask it, can do what I just described, like go get the paper, add some research, produce a document. But if I want that to be a reliable and consistent process, I don't want to rely on the whims of like the particular model I've got selected and the particular way I phrase the question to produce my reports, because I want my reports to be consistent, like that. I want them done in a common way. And there'll be a lot of work related tasks. Like if I'm a law firm and I'm preparing contracts, I want that to come from a common source document. I want it to fill in the common fields. I want it to look the same. I don't want it to get creative and like add a picture of like a fawn in there or something because it thinks today that is the day to be creative. I want the same thing every time. And so I think this idea of like, and naming is a hard thing in this space, but the idea of these repeatable skills, which I guess is what Google is now calling agents. I think no one can get this naming of agents right, because it's really just like a procedural group of skills where the LLM is making sort of sub decisions and using its ability to change formats of things into the format you want. Like that's what they're calling an agent, but that's not really agency, if you know what I mean. Like we need this repeatable skill that can be part of an overall thing which agents then use. And so I don't know about the language, but I hope you know what I'm getting at in the terms of gradation of these different abilities.
Well, I think what you're trying to say is what makes an organization unique, and it's the processes within the organization of people doing things, like how they get their work done, how they present information. Like why do you go to a great, say, law firm? It's like, well, they've got great lawyers, but they also have great structures around like winning cases and getting things done in that organization. And so I think what you're saying is like really organizations, I would think in the future, would want to map these out as skills, or agents call them, in a way that's updatable and repeatable for their team.
Yes.
And they can build upon
and collaborate on it and share it and those kind of things.
Which makes me kind of wonder, like, is the MCP paradigm still somewhat better potentially? Because then it's like you're saying, well, you can use these tools to do it, but you got to follow my process. Whereas with agent to agent, what you're saying is we're just going to outsource all of our processes and we don't really care. Like,
yes, but I guess what I'm talking about is the concept of you building those chain tool calls with your own unique IP in terms of the way your business does things into a fungible package, like into a common package. And I don't know what that's called, because I definitely wouldn't call it an agent under our definition, but whatever it is called, you can imagine a future where companies could actually make these available as something they sell. Like imagine, because it's funny, because I saw McKinsey research on the agent to agent protocol thing, and when I first saw it, I thought these are all people who've already used this technology. I'm like, what the hell? Is seriously someone sitting over at McKinsey research bashing out Python code for some protocol someone invented last week? Like, it seems crazy. But the more I've thought about it, the more I think these bigger companies like Deloitte, like PwC, and these big firms that do have the procedures like you're talking about, imagine them codifying their business processes into repeatable agent-like systems that people can then use. And so it's like, okay, you can get McKinsey like business consulting through an agent for your business for this fee. Like, it makes total sense with a common protocol and systems being able to consume this information, that you could have businesses, like information-based businesses, publishing services that can be used through an agent, that actually have the real stuff that these guys are using inside their companies.
That is assuming what they do is not,
Well, I mean, also it's like the emperor has no clothes. It's like, yeah, we don't really do much.
yeah,
man.
it's like, oh, it wasn't actually, it was really just like a lunch thing.
We just sort of like, yeah, charge the fees, go out to lunches paid by the companies and billable hours, man. Like reading emails, that's $50 seems fair to read an email.
It's like, how will we give the leadership an out with with this?
But I mean, this is the innovator's dilemma, right? Like, this is where the up and coming consulting companies and the up and coming companies are going to beat others by being like, yeah, we can give you all the things that normally would cost this in an agent form, and it's miles cheaper and it's just as effective or more effective.
Yeah, the thing I'm struggling with is this. It's like, now I'll just go to Box and find my corporate files. Now I'll go to Pendo and create a task. Like, at what point does it get to where the human is not really in the loop and it's just doing busy work in what it now is essentially outdated SaaS applications in this new world?
Yeah, it's funny because I had the same thought, because we naturally think about automating work tasks in terms of the tools we have to use in order to get our work done. And I was discussing with you last week about this, the idea that maybe even coding projects should be structured differently to suit AI, because it's the one that's going to be doing all the work. And it's kind of the same when it comes to things like, how do you organize files? How do you organize presentations? How do you organize APIs and systems like that? All of it comes back to, well, if the agent's going to be the one planning out and doing these tasks, it should be suiting it. It shouldn't be like logging into Salesforce, because Salesforce becomes unnecessary. Because really, even if you've still got a real world road salesman out there who needs to get the latest reports, that should just be spat out straight from the API. He shouldn't be logging in, making pivot tables and whatever the hell you do in Salesforce all day.
Yeah, the agent-to-agent protocol and all these logos on the page feels like a short-term protection racket for SaaS and like database companies. That, like, maybe like a 10-year protection racket, but that's kind of what it feels like. I think we're so far off though from like these being fully replaceable or anything, but you can totally see the AI agent or workspace interfaces of the future just like not needing any of this stuff, because if they have the right ways to output and structure data with commonality in an organization, you could just show me the leads that we need to attack. Okay, let's make a plan together now how we're going to go after them. Maybe it's like dinners if you're McKinsey, or whatever it is, and like it's all happening in there. And I think the bit right now that still I think many struggle with, and this is why interfaces and having like procedural interfaces that you have with SaaS is so much better, is it's sort of the way people interpret and deal with data today, is that very structured formatting rather than some blank chat box where they've got to just know like what tool to call or what button to
and
click.
I think that is part of the thing. Like, one of the first things I noticed working with MCP servers is the first thing I'm like is like, well, what can I do? Like, what can I do? Like, now that I have, say, 10 different things, like I've got, say, Discord connected, I've got Google Drive connected, I've got Stripe connected, academic research, deep research. Like, what are the possibilities here? And like, what can I make with this? Like, and then like you say, you're just staring at a blank box. It seems to me like there needs to be structure around it. It needs to be goal oriented. And ultimately, I think that the agents themselves need to come up with the plans. Like, you need to get better at specifying what you're trying to accomplish. And I think the better people are, and we've seen this in our own work so much now, the better you are at describing what needs to be done and at the right level, the better. Because you can go down and say, I need to write a function to do this, or I need to produce a document to do this. But is that high level enough? So for example, if I'm running a small business, I might be like, okay, I need you to help me write a Facebook ad. But really, that's not what you're trying to do. What you're trying to do is get money. Like, you're trying to get more people buying your stuff. I really think we're at the point where you should be connecting the right MCP servers, giving access to the agent all the tools and stuff that you have available to you for your business, all the information, documentation, website, everything, and saying, I need to make more money. Come up with a plan to help me make more money. And it goes in and looks at everything, like the financials, what's working for you, what isn't working for you, maybe in terms of advertising, maybe just looking at your sales data and go, hey, we're making a ton of sales with people in this area for this specific product. Let's come up with a plan today that we can do to get more of those people coming into your business, rather than sitting at a ChatGPT prompt and going, help me fix the copy for my ad. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, I feel like the way people work needs to get to that higher level as you outsource more of the work to the agent on the lower level stuff. And you just simply don't need to worry about those details. Like, let it handle those details and monitor performance and stuff, and work at that higher level of tasks, so you're getting bigger chunks and more leverage with your time.
Yeah, I think the future is definitely the human in the loop is the source of agency, like the highest level of agency. And then there's these abstraction layers down. And a lot of the processes or the things people do on a daily basis in their jobs today will be codified. It's still like, I think the reality check here, though, for us all, as we go down this like wormhole, is that today, like, a lot of these models and a lot of these capabilities with MCPs and agents are just simply not capable of replacing these lower level processes, or you can codify the hell out of a process, but really there's certain sub-level tasks or processes you do in your job today that it can replace and do a really good job at. It's going to help you be more productive and not do like boring background work. But I think it's far from being able to be like, go and get me more sales, or instead of going through a process of like, think about an outbound salesperson, like, find a bunch of leads and then harass people via email. Like that probably can be codified.
But I think also there's going to be, you remember when that guy came out with like the 7-hour work week or whatever, and he laid out all of these little tips and tricks he does to leverage his time, essentially. I mean, really, he was just selling books, right? But like, the concept's good. I can automate my customer support by paying someone $4 in Indonesia or something to do it for me, right? Like, that's one of his hacks, is like, just pay poor people to do it. But my point is that book had a whole series of little tricks that he had learned to automate parts of the business. Now, I guess what I'm saying is that kind of knowledge in a business is very important. It's part of the essence that what makes a business what it is. Like, we have a technique to deal with complaints. We have a technique to ask our customers for reviews. And like, you see point solutions for all of these in products. We have a technique to try and stop people from canceling. We have a technique to get people to buy. Like, so for example, when I did Stays, the accommodation website, we knew that people like to book holidays while they're on holidays. Like, people book the most holidays while they're already on a holiday. They're like, we should book the next trip or whatever it is. They've got the time to do it. We just found that. So we would do marketing campaigns to people while we knew they were on holidays, right? Great example of something you wouldn't know unless you've actually been in the business and done it. Now, things like that could be codified into almost like a knowledge base that goes into AIs, like almost like, plugins that can enhance business processes. So I actually think that like, this is going to be somewhat the future of people who know the business processes they have that work, codifying those into systems that the agents can then use to, make them more competitive.
Well, it was sort of like the dawn of the internet, right? Where you had internet businesses that could have, I mean, early on at least, later they broke these rules, but it could be like a team of 30 and they're competing against disrupting a company that has like 10,000, 20,000 employees, right? And that was sort of the disruption of the internet, especially the newspaper businesses. Like, holiday accommodation listings, things like that. And it seems like this next evolution of that is you can be very disruptive by having a lot of the work in your organization done by agents where you just don't have to employ as many people, right? So it is a risk to future employment in the sense that you can just remove a whole bunch of roles that you just simply don't need anymore and create these highly efficient businesses. And I think that the funniest thing I thought about all of this is on the agent-to-agent protocol interoperability page, they've got a real-world example, candidate sourcing. I'm hiring a staff software engineer position, and it's going off and like sourcing these people. I'm like, is this a joke? Like, I mean, essentially, like we're like, oh, they're literally, these companies are making layoffs while they're showing sourcing candidates as a use case.
Yeah, and I've updated my opinion on that. Like in the earlier episodes, I was like, we both said, I think it's a long time before this starts to affect employment markets. But I kind of don't agree with that anymore. I think it will start to affect things as people realize that they have leverage, like we're discussing, to do more. And so it'll be like, oh, I'm just going to hold off making that hire. Like, I don't need someone to do all of that stuff because I'm basically being able to handle it with the power of my AI buddy. And so it doesn't mean people are going to get fired per se, but it means they won't get hired. And so we'll gradually see that effect in the market over the next few years. And I think as more of this agentry stuff and these stored skills that can be repeated happen, suddenly I don't really need someone to go through as my bookkeeper, say, and do all this manual entry work when I have an agent that has access to my systems through MCP that can just go, okay, reconcile all the payments that came into the bank with this, follow up these things, send out these letters automatically using the MCP that does that. Like, those are roles that could just be 100% replaced in the next little while once the tooling catches up.
To be clear, though, we know they can. So I think slightly misleading. We actually know they can because, for example, for businesses here in Australia, and I think some in the US as well, you use a tool called Xero, and in the US there's QuickBooks, right? And those have MCPs where you can work. You've got these functions available. So now I can create an assistant called Expert Australian Accountant, right? And I can connect the Xero MCP tool in, which has all the security and compliance and authentication with the bank and the ledger and the payroll and like everything that you would need and probably not want to build because of legislation, right? So that SaaS, I think, is fairly a safe bet as a system of record, at least for now. And so with that Australian Accountant Assistant and these MCP tools enabled, you can literally have a meeting with the assistant and be like, oh, we need to do, in Australia, there's this thing called a business activity statement. We need to do the business activity statement stuff. Let's just go through everything now together. Or like, based on our previous conversations, can you just go and categorize all of the different, expenditure of the business and categorize it automatically? So you can already do these things now.
Another example, I connected the Stripe MCP and I said, can you get a list of all of my products and create a pricing page for me using Create with Code? And it was able to read in the products. I also gave it a screenshot of the website, match the style of the website, and create a pricing page. Now, we used, back in like many years ago, like 20 years ago, we did a web design agency. How much were people paying even back then to just produce a basic landing page site with a pricing page? You're talking like tens of thousands of dollars to produce that kind of stuff. Now it can be done in like less than a minute and it looks better and it's actually accurate. And you could actually keep it up to date using that technique as well.
Yeah, it's funny though. I think like people, I'm sure, that listen to this show and us and, this sort of like, let's call it the insiders, know all of this is possible or about to come, and that's great. But a good example of how unknown this stuff is my son's playing in this soccer team. There's all these stupid soccer apps I've discovered about, like, there's literally one app for like wet weather and another app for like forms, and they are the worst apps I've ever used. They're just horrendous. So I was like, I'm just going to create my own app. And I literally used Create with Code, dragged in the PDF I downloaded of the drawer and where training was, gave it a few more details and said, make a mobile website, but with a PWA, which means you can actually install it like an app on the phone. Get it done, please. It took me about 3 shots, I think, and I added an AI chatbot that knew
Which model
all the details. Gemini 2.5. Gemini 2.5 though, and then I switched to Claude Sonnet and be like, can you clean up the design? This guy sucks at designing, to be clear. But anyway, so I did it, and like I've got it here. I don't know if I'll be able to show it because I don't really want to dox myself or my kid. Yeah, I won't. But I have an app on my phone.
Your name's on the bloody podcast.
No, I mean, you know what I mean. Like, it's got the address of the actual like training. I just, you
should send a photo of the field.
Okay, here's the chatbot bit. I'll hold it up to the camera. It's not going to focus right, but it's pretty cool, right? Full screen app. So much
it has
easier.
A chat assistance where the team can ask it questions.
So I'm the coach, right? And I don't know the rules of soccer or this Mini-Roo thing. So one of the suggested prompts in my AI chat that I created in 3 minutes is, what are Mini-Roo rules? And I've also created myself a coaching companion app with drills, so I can choose drills automatically by just tapping on them. So each training session, I can remember how to actually train kids in soccer because I have literally no idea.
I got a hack for you for kids soccer. There's no offsides. So just position a kid down past
right near the goal
else and just kick it past them.
Just exploit the rules.
It's unlimited goals. We played against a team one day, my kids, who did that, and they scored like 16 goals or something.
All right, I'm gonna do that because I'm one of those terrible parents. So anyway, we've gone way off track here, but I guess the point I'm trying to make around this is that you just, like you said, that the cost has essentially gone to zero. But then I showed this app to the parents and they're like, oh my God, you should turn this into a business. You could make a killing. And I'm like, what?
Yeah, so, it's like, no, I actually can't because I could make 60 of these apps per minute.
Yeah, so despite us talking about like job losses and like all these like existential crises that may come or may not, I think the reality today is there's still like this huge layer of opportunity here, especially around like building these procedural agents, like helping people that will never understand this or never want to like vibe code or whatever it is, see the benefit or that like price decline. Like, no, we can make this like soccer app customized to your team for like $10 a month or $5 a month during the season. So I think there's this opportunity to basically like compete on there's a huge deflationary mechanism here. Like, it's very deflationary to app development and software in general.
But also I think it's very enabling for people who previously couldn't have afforded things. Like, if you think about small-time charities, small-time organizations, like you're saying, like little soccer teams and little clubs and things who, had the sort of Dreamweaver website with the under construction GIF on it, even though it's like 2025, but they're like, that's what we have. We've just got to kind of stick with it. Like my local tennis club, I think I mentioned it before, where like the way you log in to pay your bills is just by entering your last name. Like, that's literally the security, is like you just type your name. And, systems like that, like, really could be upgraded, even though they can't afford it. They know what they want, and they'd actually be able to, maybe with someone's assistant, get like a sort of new generation alpha kid to sit there and vibe code it out for them and be like, yeah, that's what I want. Thank you. Like, let's publish that. I think you're right. That like, sorry, I guess it's more than just driving costs down. It's also opening up people's eyes to the possibilities. It's like all this stuff you saw is now possible for you, similar to what YouTube did for videos. Like, in the past, like if you wanted to watch like a skit TV show, it had to be picked up by a network, it had to be funded, like it had to be published. Now anyone can just do that, like just make a video and other people will watch it. And that's why you can watch a video on basically anything. And it might be the same now with things like software, with things like businesses. Like, people can afford to run a business that does really specific stuff because the actual cost to run the business is just paying for a subscription to an AI model that is able to run all that stuff. Like, so it's really going to make what's possible much more expansive.
You might have accidentally hit the nail on the head of what's really going to happen here, right? So think about social media and the cost of like video production and content going to zero. Like anyone can produce anything, and all it did was like basically break up into a million pieces people who have influence, like us, you know, with our average size audience, with our average
We influence over 10 people.
Yeah, we've influenced at least 10 people with the show. And so you think if the voice gets sort of somewhat diluted, and it seems like the software companies inadvertently are going to dilute themselves, because you can literally just have this absolute dilution. But you could argue you could argue that it just means that there's just more demand for something, because now, like you said, the local tennis club can have this brilliant experience. So maybe it just leads to actually more work, not less work.
Yeah, exactly. It's sort of like that abundance mentality. It's like, well, what can we create with this? And it doesn't all have to be businesses for profit. Like you can actually do really cool stuff with it that makes it better for everyone, more useful, more information, less time wasted, like combining all of the stuff from different places. Like you earlier were like looking for some email about a chair you ordered me like months ago, and you were like, I couldn't be bothered searching my email. If AI can do that, that saved you time. It means you get the next step down the road on the process that you might have otherwise given up on because it was too hard.
Do you know the funniest thing though is that's a true story. So I use the Gemini like find my emails thing. I know it's probably not the latest one, and I just use their regular search as well. I could not find that email, right? And with an MCP, I can. So what is going on? Like,
yeah, it is kind of funny, isn't it? But I think that's partly what, like, you know, we've mentioned this before, but we often work when we're really tired, like, you know, at night and weekends and times where things just feel hard. Like, I don't know, I assume everyone feels the same, but when I'm tired, things just like problems that are so simple, like I need to get up and pee, just become insurmountable. Like I'd have to take my headphones off and then move my chair and, you know, that kind of thing. But the thing is, when you've got the power of an agent at your disposal that has access to these different tools, suddenly I really just have to say what my problem is. And this is really how I work with Patricia all the time now. I'm like, oh, okay, here's my issues. Like, I think we had a thing with the MCP store where when you
stop
uninstall
linking stuff. What are you doing?
Oh, sorry. Okay. What MCP store? Oh, never mind. I had a problem with my kids' soccer team, and when they were trying to uninstall the MCP from the soccer team, it would have an error, and I was just like, "Oh man, I'm too tired for this." But I just gave it the code and just said, here's my problem. And then it's just Gemini 2.5 was like, bang, 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 make these 3 changes all sorted. It's actually easier than you think. And I was like, wow, that's another task I never would have gotten done. And it's like that with so many areas, not just, I know we always talk about coding because we can relate to it, but it applies to all sorts of things. You just give it the stuff, tell it what your problem is, and then out comes a step-by-step thing of how to do it with specifics.
Working yourself to an early death has never been easier.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I did tell you this morning, you're like, oh, how did you go last night? I'm like, yeah, I went to bed at 10 and I woke up at 2 a.m. so I could get extra work done.
And I was
really
much more productive.
Yeah, and I was like, this is like a life hack, because you wake up with like really fresh energy and it's like you've still got all this extra time.
Okay, so that covers the first thing Google announced out of 100, and we're only 48 minutes into the show, so this is going to be a long one.
I don't care. I've got nothing to do.
I'm tired anyway.
Yeah.
All right, should we, like, I don't even know where to go from here.
Well, I think we should at least address the agent framework that they brought out, the Agent Development Kit ADK.
Oh, we haven't even covered that yet. Unbelievable.
I can give you a pretty brief summary. Essentially what it is a framework that gives you a whole bunch
Hang on. Let's hear what the gaggle of nerds have to say first.
And I'm really excited to share something new with you today. We talk to a lot of AI developers and hear consistently that building sophisticated agents, particularly multi-agent or multimodal ones, is often way more complex and time-consuming than it should be.
Thank you, Gaggle. All right, over to you, Chris.
Yeah, if they're talking to developer, like, are they stupid? Like, how hard is it to do. Like I don't think frameworks are the answer. Like we have the first
Hang on. Explain what it is first, because I think.
So a framework essentially is a way of working when you're working on a software project. So it will have built-in functions that do certain things. It'll have configuration files you can provide that'll do some of the work for you. So to give an example, the Agent Development Kit framework has the concept of conversation threads and long-term knowledge. So it has a function you can call that will store long-term knowledge, which can then be retrieved and used by the agent when you call an agentic function in this framework. So rather than you, the programmer, having to build a memory system and decide how that's going to, like what fields that's going to be in the database and when and how you retrieve that, all of that is handled for you. All you need to know is I want to store a memory. I call this function, it's there and later available for the agent. Very nice, very convenient, right? They also have things like, here's how we define tools. But if I define tools, they can work across multiple agents and things like that. So I only have to define it once. And then it has procedures for, okay, I want my agent to do a series of tasks. It can go off and do that series of tasks as a sort of pre-built flow that handles errors and handles retries and that kind of stuff. So an agent is sort of like, a framework is like, we know the problem you're trying to solve. So here's a bunch of stuff that we made for you that's common to all the projects. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel and you don't have to rebuild all this stuff and deal with the inevitable errors and problems of that system. So for a developer trying to work on a project, the whole idea is you just bring what's unique to your project to it and let the smart guys at Google worry about all this other stuff, right? That's sort of the concept. Another famous framework people probably have heard of is Ruby on Rails. So Ruby on Rails is like web application development where they're like, we know you need to update, change, and delete stuff. We know people need to log in. We know they need to get email notifications. And so we'll just build all that stuff for you and you just fill in the gaps with what's different about your application. Does that make sense? And I know you know.
Yes. There's the audience.
Great. Yes, it does make sense. Thank you. And so, so Google has made an agent development kit. Now, here's a couple of reasons I'm not going to use it.
Actually, let me also say OpenAI has their own agent development kit. Microsoft has their own framework. There's a lot of them out there. So this is yet another one. It's not that unique.
Yeah, and here's why I don't think we'll use it. Firstly, anytime there's a framework that's like version 0.1.0, you should stay away from it because it's going to change significantly. They are going to make breaking changes. There's going to be like a few months from now, it's like, oh, announcing V2 of the framework. Nothing you built before works anymore with this new framework because we changed our mind. It is like the thinking of a single or small group of developers evolving as the technology evolves. For example, at the heart of sim theory is the sim theory framework that does all this stuff, right? And it's changed a lot over time as new technologies come out. There's different ways of working with different things that we want to add to the system. And the whole idea is that if you develop in a more literal way and don't try to abstract all these concepts, you can move a lot faster, in my opinion. I've been doing this for a long time. The problem with locking yourself into a framework is while you're doing what the framework wants, it's really easy and really fast to get up and running. Then the second you want to do something that's outside of that framework and it's a bit different, you struggle because it's not designed for that. And suddenly you're spending all your time debugging someone else's code and working with someone else's stuff that you could be spending on working on your own stuff. So I'm not saying this is a bad thing. I'm sure for some people building applications, it'll be great. And maybe a year from now, this thing will be amazing and everyone's like, oh my God, there's a generator. I just run it. It writes all the base code. I just have to sub in what my agent's doing and I'm up and away in a few minutes. If I was building many, many small AI applications, getting to know this might be helpful, but it's too new. It's too early. I think for someone to just be like, yeah, we do all our building on the ADK is just kind of crazy because you just don't know where it's going to go. And some of their concepts are good, but I would say that anyone building AI systems already has their own stuff to do all this. Like I just don't see it as a major deal until it establishes itself over a long period of time.
Yeah, and I think really they've just codified a lot of the things. Like they've codified sessions and memories, agent interactions, the concept of what they call artifacts. So they allow you to essentially create like blob files, or like everything can become an artifact, like an image or text or whatever, and then have versions of that the agent's aware of as it's like iterating over time. So they've really just created a framework for a lot of the different for agents, like OpenAI has, like Microsoft has, like Crew AI has, in a way as well. So I think what's really happening here with these SDKs is that each cloud provider is just battling it out for their enterprise customers to be like, yeah, we've got that. We've got, this is our sort of suite of stuff that you can use on our cloud. And it like, obviously it's Google Cloud Next. So that's what it's about, like vendor lock into the cloud. Because if you start to lock into these development kits, really these are like the future operating systems of businesses from what we understand. And therefore, if you lock into Google Cloud's, ADK as they call it, then you're really in that world. It's like sort of how Apple have locked you into the iPhone, or Android try to lock you into their devices.
And to some degree, that's where the advantages come, because it's like, okay, if you adopt this framework, suddenly scaling and deployment becomes a no-brainer, because presumably Google is going to have the ability to like one-click deploy these things, to, scale them horizontally. So if the load's really high, you can have 20 of them. All that sort of stuff will become easy. But the trade-off is, you're using their framework, and unless it's supported by other models and other systems, you're somewhat locked in to Google. I think we're going to see very, very soon the same thing for MCP servers. So you're going to see companies like Cloudflare, AWS be like, we have serverless MCP swarms where, you can roll out 100 of these things and they'll all be hosted and automatically updated and whatever. Like, I think that's an inevitability. But the beautiful thing about a more generic protocol like MCP is, that's fine. I'll just host with whoever's the cheapest or most convenient for me, or a cloud provider I'm already working with. I don't think it's going to be a competitive advantage for anyone necessarily. And like you say, I think when they have these specific frameworks, they're really trying to get established as, okay, this is the de facto one that everyone's using. Therefore, people are more inclined to go to the home of that and deploy their stuff there.
Yeah, I think that the one thing that's interesting about what Google's done is the ability to use different models. Like they're not forcing you. I don't think, from what I read.
No, they're not, because they also host the Anthropic models on Google Cloud.
Yeah, so they're becoming model agnostic, which I think we'll also see happening increasingly, even though they don't really need to be right now, because Gemini 2.5 I think is far superior outside of like design. It's pretty bad in terms of
I
design.
didn't get a chance to mention that earlier, but yeah, I've been using Gemini 2.5 all week, to the exclusion of other models, except for when we tested Grok 3 and Llama, of course. But it's excellent. I love 2.5. It's amazing.
Okay, so one other thing I'll call out is I was Googling around for news about this AI agents marketplace, because I was like, I want to see what's in the marketplace, because it's referenced. It was referenced quite a few times in the keynote, and it's also referenced in the blogs. And so I found this article by Tegan Jones. Thanks, Tegan. Neural Notes, Google launches Shopify-style marketplace for AI agents. So I was like, wow, they've released an AI agent store. How exciting. After a lot of searching and a lot of authentication, I found the marketplace in Google Cloud. And you weren't wrong about Deloitte and McKinsey codifying processes. Deloitte has the top result in the marketplace is Denials Analyzer Agent by Deloitte Consulting. You've got Meeting Data Analyzer, so all those meetings that you're in as a consultant. You've got Talk to Data Agent Suite. So let's now go and install from our Shopify-like app experience one of these apps. So I click through to the app, and then, I can't. It just literally has sign up with partner on all of them. And then it says you are leaving Google. And then you go through to a sales landing page for Deloitte. Now I thought, maybe it's just like the consulting apps are like this, but no, it's literally every app. Like, it's true vaporware.
And then the guys over at Deloitte are probably using mark-to-market accounting, and they're like, yeah, we booked 15 million revenue for our AI store this month.
But look at this, Y Pro Order AI. It's like, you are leaving. I guess it's not that different to the Amazon marketplace, but it literally just links to landing pages. It's far from a store or far from what I envisaged with the agent-to-agent protocol. Maybe it'll improve over time. I think there's an opportunity
Yeah,
here.
because it seems like the agent-to-agent protocol is like a very, very basic concept right now. Like if I actually look, I always like to look at the code implementations of them, like the example code, because I understand that better than just marketing talk. And look, it's kind of cool. It makes sense. It's like a series of functions that you can sort of implement, and then that adopts the protocol, and then your system can talk to the other systems. Really simple. And some big company really does need to be the one to do it, so everyone will adopt it. If everyone comes up with their own, it's not going to be very helpful. So that makes sense. But this whole store / marketing side of it is literally just advertising for these companies. And so in their board meetings and their presentations, they can be like, look, Deloitte's listed on Google in the agent-to-agent store. We're so innovative. Isn't this amazing? Like there's no substance to that at all.
Yeah, I mean, I think the other thing is that we, for some reason, not calling out this time is literally everything they announced outside of maybe Firebase Studio, which I'll show now, was vaporware. Like it's like coming soon, available soon. Like yet again, like nothing's actually shipped. You know, out of all of these updates. So anyway, Firebase Studio, they renamed this from something else, but Firebase was a Google acquisition originally around Android apps. But now they've got sort of like a lovable VO, create with code in sim theory style feature, and it's just the kind of atypical thing, except it has access to like a whole bunch of like pre-configured frameworks when you first load it up. So you can see down here, start coding an app. You can actually specify like, I want a Java app, I want an Android app or whatever. And like all these things, you can just put in a prompt to sort of get started. So I did it, and a lot of people on X also did it once they got access. And I had high hopes based on some of the demos. But it's bad. It's almost like they didn't test this, and I'm not alone in my experience with this. Nearly everyone on X is saying I can't actually get it to do anything. So it's going to need a lot of polish. I don't understand how they release this. I think it's a great idea for them to do, but I'm just not sure who it's for, because like it doesn't work. So I see two categories of users. Category one is like, you know, someone like the manager of the kids soccer team who just wants to do what I did and build a little soccer app and deploy it and send that to parents. And it's like a throwaway app, like we've talked about on the show before. That's one, I think one potential like audience for this. The other audience is for devs to quickly prototype things and then take them into an IDE and build them, or like, you know, quickly prototype new features. Now, I tried the soccer example. I tried a ton of examples. This is not the only one. And every single one just had errors. Like literally, like it just gets into an error loop. And so...
And which model is this using under the hood?
Don't know. It doesn't say. I'm assuming 2.5, but because you know why I assume 2.5 is look at the comments it puts into the code. Like it's actually... So one of the problems with coding with Gemini 2.5 is it puts incompatible thinking comments into your code that break your code everywhere all the time. And so I've had to like script my prompt to be like, do not do this. Like lots of small animals will die if you do this.
Yeah, because to some degree, part of me wonders they've obviously trained it on code with tons of comments, so it knows what it's doing, almost like a running narrative in its head, explaining boundaries for things and what's going on. But that's led to this horrible output, like you say, where it literally will put a comment where it's a syntax error and just to get it in there and break stuff. And yet the code itself is great.
Yeah, so here I'm saying you are putting breaking comments into the code and giving an example. Let's see if that actually helps it repair itself. But I mean, I had to know to do that. And I also had to know the quirks and features of the model. So here it goes. It's like making its updates. And look, it's identified all of its dumb comments and it's ripping them out now. So I think I'm actually debugging for it. Maybe this will actually make it work now. But literally, it's like, here's a prototype. Look at all the files it created. Like we talked about. I can't even scroll. No, it's completely stuffed again. Anyway. So it creates like a bazillion files. And I think this is what we were talking about around the future of code. Like, I don't care. In this context...
You can't care. That's the problem, right? Like, if you are going to rely on the AI to write full software, so not just update your existing software, but like write it from scratch and do all the updates, you can't care about the code. And I find myself with that as well. If it writes a whole module, I'm not going to spend 25 minutes debugging some small part in the middle of it when I'm not even sure the overall thing is very good, right? Like, I don't think if it's producing like 50 files there, what are you meant to do as a developer? Like, oh, well, it's probably mostly right. I'll just spend a day fixing all of its mistakes. Like, that's no way to work. No one wants that.
Yeah, I just don't understand who this product's for, because a developer's not going to use it because it's infuriating. And they could get something like, to me, like they want to go sort of lower level right now with like something like Cursor or, you know, whatever, like Client, like there's a million of them. So they're going to want to go lower level with their preferred sort of dev tool. And then like, who's this like high level vibe coding stuff for? It's for people who don't want to see code. Like they just want to make
vibe
stuff.
Is nothing works. Well, we've discussed this. We're like, who actually wants to see the code when you're vibe coding? It's irrelevant. You want to see software. You want to see the output you're creating, the game or the presentation or the interactive, system you're building to educate people.
But look at this. So now I can switch to the code up the top right-hand corner, right? And I get like a full, I don't even know if it's going to load. Yeah. I get a full cloud IDE, like VS Code essentially, but their cloud version. And look at all the files. Like I would literally have to understand Next.js, like all this stuff, right? And then, oh, don't worry, you get your Gemini assistant over here to help you fix the thing that it broke. What on earth? I mean,
and I think this is the problem, right? That's like, it's so clear. And I would imagine to our audience, it's so clear that this is not the future of work. Like at best, this is a short-term point solution for a problem that nobody really has. Like it just doesn't seem like the way to go forward.
I think for prototyping these things are amazing. Like I use them all the time. Like I use Create with Code to prototype components.
Yes, but ours works, Mike.
Well, yeah, but I think Google can do a better job here. I'm just not like, anyway, I just don't understand why they're releasing stuff like this. Like I'm glad they're shipping, but it's like ship something that works, guys.
Yeah, take on less and get it right.
Yeah, and I personally think the future of these tools is just going to be complete. Like there's going to be the full like, lower level tools where you're closer to the code still and you're working with an existing code base. That's probably the most likely because there's so many existing code bases and rewriting everything's stupid. But I think there's going to be like this Dev 2.0, like the vibe coder that literally does not want to see the code. And that gives you the opportunity to structure the code differently too. So as you said earlier, like why rely on some of these frameworks? Why not just structure the code with new frameworks that make total sense for the AI? Never show the code. You shouldn't have to.
And minimize the chance of some random error breaking it as well, I think.
Yeah, like lock it down, boys. Like pick one coding language. Like that's what we did with Create with Code. I know it's far from perfect, but at least you can ship like a working form, a working survey, an AI chatbot. Like there's actual use cases and we know they work.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's the thing. Like if you do structure a project for an AI, you can get it down into small enough pieces that it can't make mistakes because it just really, I know I'm not saying Create with Code is this, by the way. I'm just saying the sort of future of it is where, okay, there's no ambiguity in this file. Like this is really basic stuff. And we take lots of basic pieces and put them together to make a working system. And I think that is probably something that would define the future. Like, can we invent a generation of software builders who know nothing about code? Like, to me, we're getting close to that point where it isn't like talking it as code just doesn't even make sense anymore. It's like I'm building tools.
Do you think here, like, and this is what I keep thinking about, as I work today, especially with these newer models that are far better, like Gemini 2.5 and 3.7 Sonnet, I can get work done. And this is not just in code. This is with documents, with writing, with all sorts of aspects I use it for, like literally showing me how to use software with screen share. Like it's better at that too. And so my gut instinct on it is I'm just getting to the point now where I do trust it. I know that like sometimes it'll just blat things and destroy things, but I at least trust it enough now where I am writing less and less code, like less and less. Like it's a pretty rapid decline. And I'm only really going in because I understand the code and tweaking minor things because I'm like, oh, I just couldn't be bothered iterating on this tiny minor thing with it. I'll just do it manually. It's still far quicker, right? So that's been working well for me, especially if I'm like precision changing things myself, like cherry picking things out from it because I understand it. But when I'm working in Create with Code, and this is something I genuinely want to just remove from the AI, I don't want to see the code. Like, I don't care. I'm like, just make it work, machine. Like, just do it. And I think that is coming. Like, that is getting closer. Like,
and I think most important to note is that concept is coming to well beyond just code. Like, if I'm trying to make a sale, do I really want to see the presentation? Do I really want to see the website? Do I really want to see the emails to the client and the contract? No, I don't care about any of that stuff. I just want it to happen. Make sales. I want to make sales. Don't care about the details, you know? And I think there's going to be more of that where it's like, okay, I want to get a contract in place with this company to do whatever. Don't really care about the contract as long as I know it's legal and I'm not, and I'm protected.
Vibe contracting. You know, it's the everyone's gonna be wearing these sick AI lid caps with their favorite CEO chains. I got to get this replaced. And that's just how it's gonna be.
Everyone's just gonna wear a chain and just be shouting at their computer for the stuff they want. I want this. I want that. It's not that far-fetched.
It's coming. It's going. I want this. I want that.
And I also think that, like, you talk about trusting the AI, and I actually think that to some degree it is a sort of trust game, and it is a sort of, do I believe this might be possible, so I'm bold enough to try it? Like, literally, like, okay, I'm going to work with the AI agent today. I'm going to give it a budget. I'm going to give it MCP access to a whole bunch of systems I have access to, and I'm going to be like, let's make some money. Come on, let's come up with some ideas or something like that. Or, you know, today I'm going to launch a charity project to do this, or today I'm going to launch an organization that does this. Let's go through all the steps together and just do it. Like, you know, and just keep saying what you want and letting it come up with the steps to do that.
And this is the thing, right? Like, I would go long on psychedelic drugs, right? Because really it's about creativity. Like, once all this stuff gets out of the way, and it will, it's just about the agency of the human and the creativity and not being afraid anymore to take on things that previously you would have been afraid to take on. And I literally said this on a call with someone the other day, like, what it's done for me, these newer models especially, and knowing the sort of quirks and features of them, I'm just not afraid to take on hard things anymore that I used to be. And I mean, we've said that a million times, right? It's not new, but it definitely, there is something special about not fearing it anymore. It's sort of like, how much can I workhorse my body at the moment to the point of just not dying? Like, that's really the sort of equation of...
And I think also you made an interesting comment earlier that I think will apply to most people with what they do, how you're like, I don't spend much time writing like lines of code anymore, right? Now, if you extend that to what everybody spends their time on, at least say when you're on a computer, how many of the things are you doing that you probably shouldn't be doing now? Like, I'm doing activities on my computer that an AI agent with, say, computer use, or an AI agent with MCP, the right MCP servers connected, could do for me. Therefore, anytime I spend doing those tasks is wasted time, because there's much more leverage in asking an AI agent to do it for me, right? Like, there's a whole bunch of stuff we do every day that are either habits, part of our job, or just we think we need to do them to accomplish our goals.
This is where I think there's a big problem with this way of analyzing things. Sometimes it is the journey. Like, these conversations, as we talk for longer and longer, we'll mostly contradict ourselves. We'll go down different we'll go down different paths, and we'll say the same shit over and over again. So I think it's similar with when you're building things or working on things. Sometimes you need to do the boring stuff and like test it yourself, or feel something or touch it, to really go through that journey of iterating and building like you don't come up with the design of the Concorde by prompting. Like,
Yeah, I know what you're saying. It's sort of like I could have all the like a good example is you don't remember all the books you read, but the books you read sort of to some degree become part of who you are, right? Like they become, you know,
part
like
of
part of
your
your
weight.
person. Pardon?
Part of your weights.
Yeah, yeah, part of you. Yeah, exactly. And so I think that you're right. Some things need to be gotten to. And it's similar to the analogy I gave earlier with the AI community at large. Everybody needs to go through the process of using the technology at different stages before they're comfortable with the next stage. You can't just go from zero to like, do all of this for me, please, and think that that is okay because people won't believe it and they won't try it.
Yeah. All right, we better move on from the Google stuff. That was the longest segment ever. But yeah, so the other announcements, they said Gemini 2.5 Flash is coming. I'm super excited for that and want to check it out because a faster, cheaper model with the capabilities of 2.5 Pro, really cool. The live API is now available. That's that real-time voice.
I tried it earlier. I tried telling it I was in love with it and various things. You heard me.
Yeah,
It wasn't.
it's okay. There's also one that came out during the week from Amazon, which we don't have time to talk about, but you should look it up. It seems pretty cool as well. Again, I think just the clouds having their stack of tools that they can offer you. And then notably, VO2 was launched as well in the Gemini API, and we were going to bring it to SimTheory, but then we saw how much it cost, and so like it's not.
Well, I've already
cheap.
written the code, or AI or whatever has written the code to have it in SimTheory, and I had it before because there was another provider like FAL or one of those GPU providers that had it, and then I made some like 30-second video as a demo. Then you pointed out it was like $2 per 30 seconds or something, and I was like, oh god, how much have I spent? And then I was hoping when Google brought it out it would either be free by some miracle or really cheap, but it's 35 cents a second.
But okay, let's go through how basic it is. So 720p, like for video editors, this look, there's very little chance anyone's actually going to use it. Maybe for like low quality vids. The length is max generations 8 seconds, and it's 35 cents a second. So it's not cheap.
I mean, it depends what you're doing, right? Like if you were making ads or, you're a YouTuber who knows you're going to get 1 million views on your video and you just need uncopyrighted content. Like I think there are use cases.
It's cheaper than stock videos. It's cheaper than stock videos. I guess the problem with it is you might need 6, 10, 20 generations to get what you want. So that it would add up after a while. I'm not sure. If you're a video editor and you like VO2, comment below and tell us we're wrong. Because,
well, I made that Jeffrey Hinton tribute song music video using VO2. So I probably spent, let's say, $30 making that video, and I've only got 110 views. So
what's our RPM on that? So we making bank on that one, Chris?
I don't know if it even registers.
All right. Remember Llama? Remember Zuckerberg with the heavy t-shirts and the chains and the, eating deer on his farm? Live, that guy. They released a new open source model, and I can't believe it's taken us 1 hour and 19 minutes to get to it. Here we are. Like below if you're still listening.
We know they are. People were commenting last week about the hats, which I think you now owe them.
Yeah, well, that's why I've got the store link below if they want to.
So yeah, you get a free hat as long as you pay for it.
Yeah, no, it's just logistically shipping around the world. Turns out it's expensive. So we don't worry, we're still making a loss on every hat sent. It's just trying to minimize the loss. So people think I'm joking. We are actually going to lose money. I think it's like $8 per hat.
Help us lose it at a more rapid rate.
Yeah, well, it is limited. There's only, I think I've only released like 100 onto that site. So, okay, Llama4 herd, the Llama4 herd. Now there was a lot of speculation because this model was meant to ship around the time that DeepSeek R1 came out. Remember that model? Mm-hmm. And so there was this alleged leak. It looks like this MetaGen AI org in panic mode. It started with DeepSeek v3, which rendered the Llama 4 already behind in benchmarks, adding insult to injury. Unknown Chinese company engineers are moving frantically to dissect DeepSeek, copy it, yada, yada. Everyone dismissed this and said probably not true, right? Then we got this launch on a weekend, which is the most bizarre launch I've seen. Like, it's very rare you get a weekend launch. Generally, the day is Thursday in the US is like the launch day, where if we ever get a heads up, it's generally
they do it in time for our podcast.
That's why we record on our Friday, because it's US Thursday. So it generally it doesn't go stale. So anyway, we got Llama4 Maverick, and this is what they say: 17 billion active parameters, 128 experts. So it's a mixture of experts model, 400 billion total parameters, 1 million context length, which is really impressive. Llama4 Scout, which is the smaller model, but this one's interesting. So 17 billion active parameters, 16 experts in the model, and then 109 billion parameters, 109 billion parameter model, but industry-leading 10 million context lengths in that model. Now, can you get it served with 10 million context lengths on any provider in the world right now? No.
You can't.
So it's very, we wanted to do some cool stuff with it and see if we could load in like entire code bases and look at retrieval examples for you and all sorts of stuff. But the max we can get, which we have hosted on Sim Theory, is 1 million. So we can give you 1 million with Scout to try, 1 million with Maverick in terms of context. In terms of initial impressions, I'm still trying to figure out where these models sit. Now, there's a larger model that's still in training. I think the reason they reserved this is because they knew that Maverick and Scout were pretty much flops in the current market. And Behemoth, they're saying it's 288 billion active parameters, 16 experts, 2 trillion total parameters, and it says the most intelligent teacher model for distillation. So it's like a training model that you can distill down from Behemoth, and they say it's in preview, but I don't know anyone who has access to it. So that's the summary of the Llama4 family. Now, Chris, have you I don't know if you've even barely used them, but what are your initial impressions?
I used it briefly. I don't think it's as bad as everyone says. Like, I tried it for coding. I tried it to write a Seinfeld script about cheese, which it managed to do just fine. I tried it with a few like riddles and other problems. Like, it seems like a fairly decent middle level model. Like, if it had come out a year ago or something, you'd be like, wow, this is like absolutely incredible. But I think I'm at the point similar to you, I think, where I don't worry as much about the model anymore. Like, yes, I'm using 2.5 because I think it's the best for my day-to-day work. But at the same time, I really think like the real innovations in the AI distribution now and getting it to do useful things is more around the interactivity of it, the tooling, the ecosystem around it, rather than just having a model. And I think, look, if I had some use case that needed a lot of fine tuning and things like that, Llama would excite me more because that would be my basis, right? Like, there's a lot going for it in that respect. But given that I don't, I find it very hard to get excited about a sort of middle level model when I have access to better ones for not that much money.
Yeah, I think it would depend on the use case in a lot of ways. Like, they did a pricing comparison on their website where they sort of estimated how much it would cost to run versus other models, and they compared it to DeepSeek 3.1 and GPT-4o, and you can see like cost per million input and output tokens blended is $4.38 on GPT-4o, and then they're saying you could run Llama4 Maverick for anywhere between 19 cents and 49. So there's a cost reduction if you're heavily reliant on like a GPT-4o style model. I actually think it's pretty comparable and competitive. I thought in the sense of a chat bot, Maverick is so good. Like, it adopts personalities really well. It follows instructions. It's quirky. I actually think the tune of it's really nice. I also think in terms of code, it is at a GPT-4o level. Like, it's on par. But that means it's not that great anymore when you've got access to even Sonnet 3.5, 3.7, Gemini 2.5. And if you're going to do anything around coding, you're just going to go with the best model. Like, there's just no reason to cost save there. So maybe for like Processing huge.
I think people who built early on OpenAI's APIs, so people who use like GPT 3.5 Turbo, aka OG ChatGPT, or the early GPT-4 or anything like that, who are still paying these monthly OpenAI bills to keep whatever AI thing they made for their business going, right? I would imagine there's plenty of people out there paying, $4,000 or $5,000 a month on services to OpenAI's API. For them, this would totally make sense. You could spin up an instance of this as small as you can make it, run all your AI influence through there, get basically the same results, if not slightly better than 3.5, and massively reduce your costs there. So to me, it's useful for that. But I mean, is that really what Meta's going for here? Like a slight cost reduction for people who have incumbent products that they just want to save money on? Like, it's not really what it's about, right?
It also seems like totally equivalent to DeepSeek V3 to me when using it and comparing it side by side. Like even the latest tune, they seem to suffer similar problems where some of the tuning feels off. I think the big difference between DeepSeek V3 and Llama4, Maverick and Scout is they have really strong vision capabilities. And I think you can't really underestimate it for vision use cases, because we even saw like Grok 3, which is apparently, for all accounts, is good at vision, but it's not in the API, which they just released. So it doesn't even have vision that's that far behind in my mind as an API. So I don't know. I think this might be a bit of a sleeper open source model where people build on it and tune it, or Meta just upgrades it over time and it actually gets better, or it may be a total flop. I'm pleased that it exists. Don't get me wrong. Like, I think it's great that it exists. But yeah, it's just, I'm not that excited by it, because I think, I just want to use the best models, and I'm personally willing to pay for the best.
Yeah, exactly. I think there are a community of people out there who want to run things themselves, and there's a huge ecosystem around that. We just don't happen to be in that. So I don't want to dismiss it outright because I probably know the least about it. But yeah, it's okay. It's just not like something crazy, boom factor, exciting level.
As they always like to do, they've done one of these like hexagon puzzle spinning physics tests on the models. Honestly, I don't know what it tells you, but everyone seems to think this is the new benchmark. You can see like the latest tune of 4.0, which they didn't compare it to, is pretty damn good at this puzzle. Gemini 2.5 Pro's on par, if not the best. And then you've got GPT 4.0 old, which is just mental. And then Llama 4 is like kind of like, I'd say somewhere in between. Look, it's stupid, these ways of comparing it, but yeah, we will watch and see with this one. So
Agreed.
Also in other notable internet AI news, XAI finally released their long-awaited API for Grok 3. We got a few different tunes: Grok 3 beta, Grok 3 mini beta, and then they have thinking parameters on top of them, and raw thought output, so you can actually just get the raw thoughts coming out of it as well, if anyone actually cares. I debate no real users actually want to read the chain of thought. Who cares? Just give me the answer.
Yeah, one interesting thing I noticed is even despite the thinking being outputted separately, it will still correct itself mid-output, because I was giving it all these riddles and things earlier, and it was like, oh no, wait, that's wrong. Like during its own response, it was sort of correcting itself, which I don't mind as long as it gets to the right answer. But it was just interesting to see that despite having the thinking ability, it was still doing it like that.
You got to reply, shut up and think quietly.
Yeah, exactly. Keep your thoughts to yourself, please.
Yeah. So I think this is going to be a massive flop. Here's why. It's an API. So the context window is 131K. Very good. The price is exactly the same as Sonnet 3.7. So $3 per million text input, $15 output. Doesn't support vision, which I think is a non-starter for me now with models. Like the fact it doesn't support vision in 2025 with all these models out, truly laughable and stupid. So it's a like total non-starter for me.
I also don't know how small the XAI team is, but everything seems sort of like half-assed. You know, like when you go into their admin panel and stuff like that, it's like really the absolute minimum basics you would need in order to get the message across to the users. Like there's a few tiles, a few little links. They use OpenAI's library, like SDK and protocol for communication.
Oh,
Which
I think they are super lean and mean. I mean, like we can't talk.
No, I'm not. I guess I'm not complaining. I'm just saying that like there isn't really the only real appeal Grok 3 has to me is that it's supposedly less censored than others. But I asked it some, reasonably controversial things and it refused those straight up. So I don't see it as being like truly uncensored in the sense that in the spirit of it.
Yeah, I think it allows you to, the tune of it allows you to explore ideas more that might be seen as slightly controversial, where like 3.7 or Gemini 2.5 would immediately just choke out and opt out. So I think there's a reason. Like I think I like that there's a competitive model that has these like stupid like trained restrictions lifted, because I think it can lead to a smarter model, not trying to force it what to say based on some view of the world. But then I also understand that you need to tune certain behaviors out of these models so it doesn't go AWOL. So but I think the pricing is the really interesting thing. Like it doesn't support vision and it's the same price as Sonnet 3.7. So like, why would you choose it? And Sonnet 3.7 has higher input and output, unless you were getting maybe a lot of refusals. Then Gemini 2.5, which is arguably far better than both of them right now, outside of, it has a terrible design eye and those annoying like bugs it has, like the commenting and stuff, is $2.50 per million input, but that's above I think 300k total. So as soon as it goes above 300k total context input, it jumps to $2.50. But below that, I think it's only $1.50. But I'm listing the highest input output prices here. So $2.50 in per million and $15 out. So it's like 50 cents cheaper in than Sonnet, and I would argue smarter. So again, if you're comparing and you just want to slot in the best model, like this makes no sense. I don't understand.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot of use cases for it, I think, is the real issue. It's like, yeah, they have one, but why would you pick it over something else? There's no real reason other than some personal preference, or you just want to support X or something.
Yeah, I played around with its coding capabilities. They're not great. Like it's good. It's like, I think like Sonnet 3.5 level, maybe slightly under in terms of like design aesthetics and its ability to produce things, but it's nothing to write home about. Like it's not like, it doesn't feel like some huge jump like Gemini 2.5 did. Like it's the first model where I was like, wow, this is actually more intelligent.
Yeah, strongly agree on that. And I think it's worth noting during the week, 2.5 you can now pay for, which means you get like better rate limits and it's more consistent and not sort of crapping out all the time, which is a superior experience.
Yeah, it definitely went through that teething factor where it was rushed sort of from experimental to like general availability, where it was having like outages and problems. And that was the thing forcing me to switch back. And it took me a long while actually to go back to it when that happened. So the reliability of these models is seemingly important in that early phase as well, to just get you to spend the time to try it. Again,
well, and to believe that they've got their weight behind it, because I think especially with Google, they're constantly announcing like variations of their models and experiments and previews and all this sort of stuff. And you just want to know, is this just something they've just thrown against the wall to see if it sticks, or is this actually something that's going to be reliable and usable and worth committing to some degree?
Well, that whole Cloud Next presentation felt like throwing a lot of new things at a wall and seeing if they stick, quite frankly. Yeah, I don't really know, but I think, yeah, you do want confidence when you're relying on this as like a primary model. And you still have the ChatGPT factor where it's like, they clearly don't have the best models anymore. I have that data just from sim theory users. Like no one touches their models anymore. I can tell you, barely. I think it was gone from like 40% or higher usage in the system in like a couple of weeks down to like 4%. And it's all Gemini 2.5 and Sonnet pretty much now, with your occasional like rando model that people are trying thrown in. So this changes so quick. I mean, in a week or two, we could be talking about like Opus 3.7 or something else, where it's just far superior. So I don't know. I think on the pricing, Grok made a mistake. Like they could have just undercut like mad and just worn the losses for a while to get a developer-based build. And I think Gemini 2.5, another Google misstep. I would have undercut Sonnet and just wiped it off the face of the earth.
Yeah, they could have kept it free. I mean, Google,
not free. I think you've got to have people pay for it. But like, what about like $1 input or 50-cent input and $5 output, and just undercut it where it makes Sonnet look bad? Quickly patch these dumb commenting bugs, get your design tuning a bit better, and you've literally wiped Anthropic potentially off the face of the earth.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And then all your agentic frameworks and agent-to-agent stuff carries more weight too, because people are like, whoa, they've got the best tooling, they're throwing the might of their company behind it, and it's like priced at a level where I can just go hard with this thing.
But you said this earlier in the week. I don't know if you remember. You said, I take Google's announcements seriously now because they have the best model.
Yeah. Yeah, that's actually, I'm glad you brought that up. I forgot about that point. But isn't it weird because their models were always sort of mediocre? I didn't really like, and we talked about this because I always said, you know, they've got native PDF, native video, native audio. They've got all these features, but because that core model wasn't there, I just didn't believe in it. But then as soon as the belief came with this amazing model, now all the stuff they've got around it, I'm like genuinely excited about. And I'm really, taking it seriously what they're saying.
Yeah, me too. I actually listen to what they say now, and before they seemed like, absolute children. I also noted their demos seem to be done this time by people who actually maybe helped build the tools and maybe understood them a little bit better. I would think in the presentations. I like in the past it's been like, so imagine you're shopping for a dress, like just. I know everyone proved me wrong because some of these people have lived out these use cases, but it just felt a little bit more authentic, I thought, too. And you can see Sundar on X. He's vying for me to make a pendant. Like, he's like, I want him wearing the pendant. Like, get that Dario pendant off. Get the Sundar one on. So we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, I think I'm just going to have to bite the bullet and order a pendant. So maybe make a new one and I'll get that.
Are you going to get the Sundar? Get the Sundar.
That's what I
didn't get the Sundar. I think
Dario's
Sundar's
out,
in.
man.
Dario's out. I mean, he's just the... I do like having a safety sex cult pendant because I feel like it fits with the brand better, but you know.
I'd also like a Jeffrey Hinton one if you're offering.
We could be like those women who have like multiple necklaces and different pendants.
Like the
of our favorite
charms,
people.
like the Lucky Charm chains they wear.
Yeah, okay. That can come soon. While we're plugging merch, look at the site I whipped up in Create with Code. I tried this in Firebase and it exploded. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, I whipped this up. It's got
He caused an actual fire in Firebase.
look. It's even got an image with someone wearing the hat. How cool's that? Doesn't look like that in real life, obviously, and no one that attractive would wear this hat in real life either. But anyway, not insulting the fans. So yeah, look at this. Look, product description. Got the hat. And this quote at the bottom, it's more than a hat. It's AI fashion.
You gave me a bag of like 100 of them, so maybe I would make my own
Oh,
website.
wait, I'm going to need them back.
And undercut you.
I'm probably going to need them back.
All right, come to my bootleg store. They'll be way cheaper.
No, appreciate my quote for a second. It's more than a hat. It's AI fashion. It makes an AI fashion statement. Love the quality. And then below, 100% fake quote. So at least it's honest. And you can see at the top, as seen worn on this day in AI. So anyway, link in the description if you want one. Be quick because we don't have that many and I don't actually want to ship them because I'm lazy and I've got to find someone to actually go to the post office because I'm not going to do that. So that's my pitch for the hats.
Sounds good.
All right, final thoughts for the week. We had the Google Cloud thing, the Llama. I just find it so weird. Llama was like a side note at the end of this episode, but I did enjoy our chat around agents. I personally enjoyed it. Don't care what anyone else thinks.
My final thoughts are, it's taken me a while to fully understand the concept and benefits of the MCP stuff. Now that I do, I can see absolute immense power in it. Not necessarily because what it does is so complex, but the idea that you can have the collective effort of all of the providers of various services putting their wares out there for you to be able to combine and use. You're like winding me up. I'm in love with MCPs.
That's probably going to get a copyright strike, but it was worth it. I'm a believer in MCPs now.
Yeah, exactly. And And I think it's going to be the models and the way they combine all of these different tools that'll be so fascinating. I think there's a little ways to go there in terms of how the tools are presented to the AI, because I suddenly realized if I have 50 MCP connections and each one has 5 to 10 functions, how in the world is the AI going to work out which ones to use when?
Just throw in your agent-to-agent protocol there.
And this is the thing. That's where that I think will come in, because it's like instead I've got 10 expert agents and then I ask them.
And each has its own, like, yeah, God, it's going to be a mind F.
Each has its own group of tools, because I think just throwing hundreds of tools at a single agent and asking it to do stuff without a planning step or without some sort of subtask system, then it's really going to get a little bit complex. So it'll be interesting to see. I think we've got ideas around the medium term or the short term of how you would actually make the most out of having access to this stuff. And I think it's going to be a fun discovery and productive phase. But I think we've just got to start thinking about that next level of how do we get it all organized so you're making sure you're using effective use of all these tools. Like, this is really going to be an exciting and interesting time when these agents have hundreds or thousands of times more abilities than they currently possess.
Yeah. And because you've just leaked everything on this show, next week we have our solution to MCP. So anyone can access MCPs and use them with their assistant, and it's going to be cool, and you should check it out. We'll email people that at some point have signed up to SimTheory early to mid next week, and you'll be able to see what we've built. We think it's pretty cool. And it allows assistants to be able to do like really interesting things for the first time without having to be a developer and like set up MCP servers. It just works out of the box, which is really cool.
Yeah, you're not screwing around with like config files on your desktop.
Yeah, which language is this one built in? Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, I think the wars continue. It's obvious next week we're gonna get like 03 and 03. 03? No, 04? Is it 04 now?
04 we're up to, yeah.
Okay, so 04, not to be confused with 40. We're going to probably get 04 mini, I think, and maybe 04 or just 04 mini. I'm not sure, but there's a lot of rumors. There's a lot of speculation that you can access some of those models right now on Open Router, apparently. But we will see what happens. I think OpenAI really needs to do something here because they have fallen off a cliff, especially in terms of people in the know with models. But again, probably aren't that pressured because ChatGPT is growing like a weed. But having said that, I think they do, for their own pride, want to have the best model. So we'll find out next week on episode 99.02 what happens.
Sounds good.
Thanks for listening. If you like the show and listen with audio, please consider leaving a review. We want to get our Apple and Spotify reviews up. Even if they are average reviews, we will accept them. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week. Goodbye.